All right, so let's just get right into it. This, first of all, is not a video that I wanted to make in the sense of the circumstances that have led to it are not ideal for me. It's not anything that I'm happy about, especially when I think about the potential impact that it is more than likely going to have with certain friends that I have, or the way that it might be perceived or misconstrued. But at the end of the day, it's one of these things where it's like, I need to say what I need to say. I need to address what I need to address. First and foremost, because it's the right thing to do. And because even though I'm somebody where I'm very much big on, I'm big on, hey, be the alternative, right? Like calling things out only does so much. Pointing out the negativity and the flaws of others only does so much. Try to be the solution, try to provide the alternative. But there comes a point with certain things where when certain lines are crossed and certain things are done, it's just as detrimental to be quiet. So I'm not going to do that in this case, in the scenario of what's going on here. So as many of you know, um, the Arnold Pro Series finale just happened this past weekend. Great weekend overall. Lots of love, lots of support. Ashton killed it, Bob killed it, Elisha killed it. My client, Brandon Petrie, did not kill it. Let's just call it what it is. Bombed out on squats, and he's owning that. I'm owning that. We're not defending anything. We're not justifying anything. We're not blaming the judges. Like, hey, didn't squat to depth, didn't squat to the standards set out by the judges for that day, and that's what matters in this sport, right? We had ambitious goals. We wanted to, hit a 920 kg total and thus have the best drug tested total in that weight class. That was the goal. And based upon what we've done in training with squatting the 700s, benching between 474 and 485, pulling the 800s, and knowing how it's daily piece, it wasn't an unrealistic goal. Like ambitious, yes, but definitely not out of reach. And if there's any meat to do it, it would be the Arnold, right? It's not nationals where you're going head to heads, and it's more about like make sure you go 9 for 9 and pick up putting up the best total you can to win. It's the Arnold where it's like, hey, we're trying to go for dots anyway. We have some specific goals, the same way that Ash and Bob had specific goals. So let's just go in and go for it. And they just didn't turn out the way that we wanted to. But I'm very, very, very proud of Petrie with how he's been handling everything mentally and emotionally, just in terms of like his maturity and the way that he's like, just taking on the chin, getting back up, getting right back to work to show what he and I both know he's capable of, and hopefully what many of you all know he's capable of as well. So very proud of him for that. And it's unfortunate that instead of being able to just be happy about his mental growth there and just be happy about how the rest of my clients did this past weekend, that I'm having to address this negative BS that's going on. So as many of you probably already saw, granted at this point, they've deleted their stories, but after Petrie bombed out, Russel Orhii, somebody who I've known since 2017, somebody that I have shown so much love and support to, somebody that I've considered a very close friend for years now, and somebody who I believe considered me a close friend for years, absolutely went in on his stories, going in on Petrie, mocking him, making fun of the fact that he bombed out, basically being like, oh, you talk all this trash, like you're so big and bad, but you bombed out. You're not him. You're not that guy. And let me be perfectly clear. I have no issue with trash talk. This is like a lot of people don't consider powerlifting a sport, but it's a sport, so it's like trash talk is part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with rivalries. Nothing wrong with back and forth. Even it gets like a little bit spicy here and there. It's not a huge deal. The problem that I have is that you're kicking somebody when they're down, and it is completely spiteful. It is hurtful. It is unnecessary. And all of this stems, right? Like not just those stories, but even Russell going on the King of the Lift podcast, arguably like the biggest podcast in powerlifting, and saying that Brandon Petrie is nothing, and claiming that Petrie said that I shouldn't be anyone's number one lifter, so he came at me first, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to have on screen what Petrie's stories actually were. And the context with this is that Petrie was doing a Q&A asking people like, hey, who's your number one lifter and why? And he expressed that for him, his number one lifter is Bob Matthews, his teammate Bob Matthews. One, for having at the time, just one of the highest dots so far, like in terms of all the lifters in the USAPL, but also the fact that he's been dominated across weight classes because he won the 100 kg weight class at nationals, and then at Virginia Pro, he competed 110 against Ashton and beat Ashton, right? So for that reason, in Petrie's mind, hey, this is my number one lifter, here's why I want to hear what you guys have to say. And, a few people said Russel Orhii. So when somebody said, who's your number one, and someone said Russ, he said, most influential for sure. So he's saying that he believes Russ is the most influential powerlifter. And then in another screenshot, somebody said you should cut to 82.5 kg and give Russ a run for his money. Peter's response was, y'all think I want to be small? He said, I would not beat Russ at 82.5. It would be better if he moved up, which is something that many of us have wanted to see. Many of us have wanted to see Russell move up to 90 kg because he's been so dominant at 82.5 for such a long time now, where it's like, dude, like, what else do you have to prove there? Like, move up to 90. It would be awesome to see him battle out with Petrie at 90 kg, right? Okay, cool. No issues there. And then somebody responded, you, Bob Russ. And he said, Ashton, Austin, and Rondell would all go before Russ, in my opinion, but thanks for putting me in there. So he's not even putting himself above Russell in these stories, but he's simply saying that he thinks Ashton, Austin, and Rondell would all go before Russ based upon this list. And once again, he's doing that based on the perspective of dots, because that's how we usually compare lifters across weight classes, is dots. And yes, people have the argument of like, oh, well, the coefficient always changes. That's fine. If you judge the best lifter based upon who's the most dominant weight class, cool. If somebody else does it based off dots where the coefficient is, cool. You're allowed to have these disagreements, but these disagreements don't automatically equal disrespect. And then the next one is somebody said Russ because he's a 5-time champion. Peter's response was, Russ is the best 82.5 kg lifter in the USAPL currently, but he's not the best lifter yet. He has the potential if pushed, just need to see him pushed. But he doesn't care about dots. If he did, he could be a force and that would be crazy to witness. These are the stories that Petrie put up in regards to Russell. I need someone to explain to me how any of these stories is shit-talking or disrespectful or taking away from anything Russell has done. He's clearly giving Russ his props. He's clearly saying that he's the most influential powerlifter. He's clearly saying that he's the most dominant force at 82.5, and that in his opinion, since he's looking at it from a dots perspective, he wouldn't say Russell's the best overall lifter, but he has the potential to easily do so if he simply pushed himself. I don't understand how in any way, shape, or form that is disrespectful or hateful or spiteful or warrants Russell then going on the King of the Lift podcast and saying that, like, they're asking, like, oh, what do you think we hear certain names, like, oh, Sean Noriega, this and that. And when they got to Petrie, he said, nothing. I don't think, like, it's nothing. I don't think anything. I'm going to take the only thing he's got. I mean, he's going to, beat him at 90. He's like, so nothing.
Brandon Petrie.
Nothing.
Not yet. Ask you in 2024.
Yeah. I generally don't think anything. Nothing. I just feel like, nothing. I feel like, I'm going to take what he got. So, I mean, like, I just don't think anything,
So,
which, hey, if that's how you feel, if you feel like, oh, no, I'm going to beat him, that's fine. But to say he's nothing and to come at him so aggressively. And what's crazy is at one point, Russell put up a story, I guess, kind of responding to Petrie's stories, or at least responding to how he perceived them or what somebody said Petrie's stories were. And Petrie saw the story and responded to Russell being like, hey, that's not what I said. Like, the way you're taking it, that's not even what I said, and it's certainly not what I meant. And Russell just left it on red. So at this point, Russell is choosing. You're literally choosing, my man. You're choosing to freaking take what Petrie said, completely misconstrue it.
Story. He had made some posts. I think he had done like a Q&A saying like, who's the number one lifter? Who, in your opinion, who's the number one lifter? And some people were mentioning my name. Mm-hmm. And he decided to go out of his way to, he said, okay, so he would go out of his way and be like, Russell shouldn't be your number one lifter, and this is why. And I'm like I'm sitting there. I didn't even see this. People were bringing it to me. I'm like, there's like, what's the context behind this? Like, what happened? Like, I don't get it.
So that's a funny essay.
Yeah. So it's just more so just like, oh, Russell shouldn't be your number one lifter, and this is why. And then other people will name some other people, and then he's like, yeah, that's valid. I'm like, okay, like, interesting. So yeah, that's where I just kind of like developed that.
And use it as some type of weird fuel for yourself, which that's crazy to me. It's cool to use your competition as fuel, but to misconstrue what he said to where you literally lie. On the Killer Podcast, you literally said that, oh yeah, Petrie said I shouldn't be anyone's number one lifter. Nowhere in those stories did he said that. You guys see the screenshots, like you saw the screenshots as I'm going through them. Where do y'all see he's saying that he can't be anyone's number one lifter? It doesn't make sense. Like, by the logic he's using, basically, if somebody doesn't say, oh yeah, you're my number one, you're my best, then it's shit talking or it's disrespectful, which is crazy. That's insanely arrogant. Something that I've always defended Russell on, being like, no, he's not arrogant, he's confident, and he's, yeah, he talks his talk, but he's earned to be able to talk like that. But this is a whole different level, right? So, and I reached out and expressed this to Russell before posting this, just out of respect for what our friendship was, I guess, expressing him that, man, it's not it's not just the fact that you're wrong for the fact that you're attacking Petrie and kicking a lifter while he's down when they just bombed out. They're already probably in a crazy emotional mental headspace. Thankfully, Petrie's good, but like kicking them while they're down, just going in on your story for hours while Petrie's down, that's already wrong, period. But it's the fact that you're doing all this on the basis of, oh, well, Petrie talk noise first. And like, I'll show you here on screen the screenshots of like, what Russ's story was, which I say he did end up deleting it, but here's the stuff, like what the stories were and what he was saying. And then I'll even show screenshots of his tweets where he's trying to justify it, basically being like, oh, so now I'm mean because I'm, going after people who came after me first. Like, I don't go after nobody, but you started this. How? What Petrie said, nothing that Petrie said was an attack. Nothing is something you have to literally go out of your way to play the most insane mental gymnastics to twist that into an attack to justify going at Petrie in this type of way. And it's really unfortunate because regardless of how Russ feels about Petrie, the fact that we're friends and that even when Russ was going through his whole unfollowing spree, that I took the time to reach out and be like, hey man, are we good? Like, are you and I good? Because he didn't unfollow me. He's like, no man, we're good. Like everything's fine. So I would think that out of respect for our friendship, if nothing else, you wouldn't kick my client while he's down. Anyone who knows me knows the type of coach that I am. You know how invested I am into my clients and their progress, how much I care about them beyond just lives, but as people. And knowing what type of headspace Petrie was in with coming in there and having these goals and then bombing out on squats, you would think if nothing else, you're not going to kick him while he's down for my sake, for the sake of our friendship, because it's not just disrespectful to him, it's disrespectful to me as his coach. And it's unacceptable, and it doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, though, I can't even really fully be surprised by all of this because over time, it does seem like Russell is becoming more arrogant, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the people he keeps around him, including his coach, Joey Flexx, and including Joey's girlfriend, Tina, because they also had things to say. I'll put those screenshots up here as well. Now, my question is this. Joey posted this right after Petrie bombed out. So no one can tell me that he was just posting this randomly to be informative. First of all, who doesn't know that if it's 3 red lights that like, I guess people who aren't involved in powerlifting wouldn't necessarily know. They're like, oh, hey, if it's 3 red lights, you can't contest it. But first of all, nobody tried to contest Petrie's squat. We didn't try to contest it because it was 3 red lights. We know we couldn't contest it. So the fact that you're posting this right after Petrie bombs out is nothing more than a dig at Petrie and a dig at me for absolutely no reason, completely unwarranted. And Tina, first of all, if people want to use the argument that, Russell allowed to take it how he wants to take it, so he's allowed to talk his noise, fine. Whatever. That's the argument you want to make. It's not valid, but cool. But what reason does Joey have to comment on it like that? If you want to say, oh, well, Russ is lifter, so he's taking after his boy, okay, not a valid argument, but sure. But then definitely explain what reason Tina has to be like this. It's just hateful and it's spiteful for no reason. Tina and Petrie don't follow each other, they don't interact with each other. You have no reason to speak on it this way. And to even make fun of like the fact that he was trying to go for Jesse Norris's total, as if like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with pushing for these big goals, right? When Petrie has not said or done anything to come after any of y'all. He's not come after any of y'all in a public setting or has done anything to spite or slight y'all. And it's completely unacceptable. And it's completely hypocritical. And that's kind of what I want to get into with a lot of this stuff. It's just the hypocrisy that's going on. Because Joey Flexx is somebody where he said on multiple stories and in multiple posts and on multiple podcasts, he wants to talk about how like, oh, this community, we should be uplifting each other. We should be more positive. And yet you have no issue with your people without cause going after others. It's like if Joey Flexx or anyone related to Flexx goes after somebody, even without proper cause, and that somebody tries to defend themselves or say anything, then it's like, oh, this is sports, you're being soft. But if anybody says anything about Flexx, even if it's objectively true, like the fact that you're copy pasting your programming to all of your clients, the fact that you have so many clients that you neglect, that they don't hear back from you from weeks, and when you do give them feedback, it's hardly feedback. It's just like, looks good, point your toes out, things of that nature, right? Whether we're talking about the fact that you copy paste the programs, that you neglect clients, the fact that you poach clients, right? Which is ironic. That's another thing. You go out of your way, right? Like on Sam Calhoun's post about poaching clients, you go out of your way to put comments like these, trying to basically show like, oh, how wrong it is to poach clients, and how even trying to give a lifter advice if they have another coach is a form of poaching. How dare you? How dare you go out of your way to present yourself as this type of person when you blatantly have tried to poach people before? When you've been in lifters' DMs that have coaches saying things like, when you're ready to be something, you let me know. When there's several coaches where we all know and have seen it and have seen the screenshots of you trying to poach other clients. And it's funny because anytime you call any of this stuff out, even if it's objectively true, then suddenly it goes from like, oh, hey, it's sports. It's talked to suddenly like, oh, we need to be more positive. Everyone's just hating on us because we're Flexx. No, it's because a lot of us in this industry hold ourselves to a certain standard. We have certain values and certain morals, certain guidelines that we keep ourselves accountable to and keep each other accountable to because there's no one here to regulate us. And you simply do not follow that. You do what is beneficial to you when it's beneficial to you. It's that simple. And you're a hypocrite. Because you can't on one end say that, oh, we need more positivity whenever somebody points out things that you're objectively doing wrong and that are very objectively unethical as a coach. Or trying to say that people are just hating on you or they're just mad because you guys win. But then whenever your lifters or you want to call out people or want to attack people unwarranted, then that's called out. Then suddenly you can't be both ways. Like, which is it? Do we need to be more positive and uplifting, or are we allowed to call out BS? Because if you're allowed to attack people unwarranted, then we should be allowed to call out BS. It doesn't even matter what it is, because the man's ego is so fragile and so soft that anything that even could remotely look like an attack against him, he's on it immediately. Like when Joseph Bornstein was literally doing an anonymous Q&A and somebody asked him who his top coaches were, and in his list, like of top 5 coaches, he had Joey Flexx in the list, right? Well, then in response to that, someone else put another story like, oh, I don't think Joey deserves to be on that list. He's overrated. He doesn't have the same attention to detail as a lot of these other coaches, stuff like that, right? So Joseph Bornstein reposted that and responded to it, being like, yeah, but he has a lot of high level. I can't speak on that because I don't know about that, but he has a lot of high level lifters who have done well, and I think that speaks for itself. Joey, instead of looking at things contextually, then decides to post these on his story, where he's basically just ranting and going off, trying to make it seem like, oh, people just want to, I usually ignore stuff like this, but people just want to talk down on Flexx. They want to try to take away from everything that we've done. It's crazy. And Joseph Bornstein, he checks Joe. He's like, you're just helping to promote this. Like, why even addressing this? Why are you even addressing this? When Joe clearly put you as one of his top 5 coaches and clearly was defending you in response to the question. Is he not allowed to respond to things? And that's another thing that I think so hilarious and ironic is that Joey will come into the DMs of coaches, right? Like if one of my lifters, for example, were to do this, or if coach has a lifter where they say anything about Flexx, he'll come to the coach directly and be like, do you co-sign this? Because, we all occupy the same space, so we all need to have respect for each other. And yet you have no issue, apparently, talking down on my client after he bombs out when he's done nothing to you, letting Russell do the same thing, your girlfriend's doing the same thing, right? Absolutely hypocritical. Doesn't make any sense. And it's funny because he's right, we do occupy the same space, which is why despite so many of us coaches knowing this is going on, knowing what type of person Joey is, knowing that he doesn't take care of a lot of his clients, that he ignored, and it's hilarious because so many of Joey's clients have left him and gone to different coaches. So many of my current clients who are great, amazing clients are former Flexx athletes, whether from Joey or from Tina. And it's the same story with all of them. No communication, getting neglected, getting really hurt and beat up, no programming adjustments, no changes being made. It's the same story for all of them. And yet each time a lot of these lifters came to me, there was never an issue. Joey never seemed to really care. Maybe they didn't notice because they weren't as strong as a lot of his top level lifters, right? But then when Alex, aka Lucky, came to me, which, mind you, I had no idea he was planning on doing so until I got the email the morning of. Then a few hours after that, Joey's in my DMs for hours, accusing me of poaching, and trying to make it seem like we're being like, oh, there's people in my ear, and I just wanted to know, like, hey, why did what did he tell you? Why did he come to you? 'Cause, it seems like he's just a kid, doesn't really know what he wants and stuff like that. And he's just being hypocritical because I'm addressing each of his points, being like, well, I didn't know Lucky had any intention of coming to me until I got the email. But I do know for a fact that he sent you the email explaining why he's leaving. He said it had nothing to do with the lack of progress, but had everything to do with the fact that you're not communicating, you're not really giving him technical feedback, and he wants to be the best he can be. He doesn't want to just make progress, he wants to maximize what he can be as a lifter. And it's funny that it's the same reason that all these other clients have left you, but you cared when Lucky left. Why? Because Lucky's a stronger lifter, and that's how you operate. Because you don't view your clients as just people to help, you view them in tiers like they're trophy horses. That's why you pay attention to Russell. That's why you pay attention to Jesus. That's why you pay attention to Amanda to some degree. That's why you pay attention to Mikey, because they're strong lifters, say they with Keiko, that make you look good, right? And that's what it comes down to. They're strong, they have potential, so that's why you get a little bit more attention. But you are not giving that same level of attention, if any at all, to so many of your other clients. And it's ridiculous. It's arrogant and ridiculous to then to have the audacity to say things like, oh, I made Keiko. Oh, Russell just had like a 1685 total before me. Like you say these like, oh, I made these lifters. He even said that in regards to Lucky, saying that, oh, Lucky was nothing before me. I made him the best junior in the 82 and stuff like that. It's insane because it's so arrogant. I would never say that about any of my clients. Like, if you ask me, do I think I've helped Ashton, Bob, Petrie, Jamar, Michael C., so on, make lots of progress? Yes, I will say that for all my clients. That yes, I've had them make a lot of progress. And I will take pride in my coaching and say that, yeah, I think I could argue that they would not have made as much progress necessarily as quickly or as healthily if they went to somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would never say that I made them. They were already strong. The same way that Russ and Keiko were already strong. Like, you can't have a 500 dots lifter or a top 10 lifter come to you and then be like, oh, I made them. They were already a top 10 lifter. They're already a 500 plus dots lifter. But that's the arrogance of Joey Flexx. And it's this cult-like mentality that he instills in his lifters, where if anyone says anything that is critical of them, then it's a problem. Then, oh, they're just hating. It doesn't matter what it is. Even if you're trying to talk to people in love, even if you're trying to tell them the truth in love. No, it's just hating. If you don't agree with us, you're not riding with us, then it's just hating. It's ridiculous. And it's very evident with how Russell's carrying himself right now, because the Russell that I've known for years wasn't always like this. The Russell that I knew was about what his brand says, actually getting better today. The Russell that I knew was open to criticism, open to feedback, would try to do things to get better. He was okay with not being surrounded by yes men, as long as what the person was saying was valid and was there to help him. But now Petrie can't even give an opinion that differs from him without it being misconstrued as an attack on him and him talking down, which is ridiculous. In what world is what Petrie did so awful and wrong, but what Russell and Joey and Tina are doing is acceptable? It doesn't make any sense. And it's one of these things where I'm honestly not expecting anything to change after this video. I'm not. I am fully aware that people might just take this as me trying to cause drama or, me seeking clout. I don't even know, which doesn't even make sense for me or my brand or how I operate. Like, I've gotten where I've gotten by just putting out high quality content, but delivering the best coaching service that I can and trying to avoid drama as much as possible. It takes a lot to get me to the point of having to call someone out or talk about something like this. But I was not going to sit by and let them come after Petrie in that type of way when he's done nothing to wrong them. He's done nothing to warrant that. And the fact of the matter is all this stuff going on in the background with Flexx that I've tried to keep quiet about because, once again, as Joey always says, oh, we occupy the same space, and also out of respect for my friendship with Russell. But clearly, Russell doesn't care about or value our friendship enough to not go after my lifter when he's down. So at this point, there's no need to hold back. And like I said, there's nothing, I don't expect anything to change. I don't expect Joey to change. I expect Joey to try to deny all of this. There's more than enough evidence and more than enough screenshots to prove everything that I'm saying. But I expect Joey to try to deny all of this or to twist this in whatever way. I already know that a lot of his lifters or people who support Flexx with that cult mentality are just going to take this as me hating and trying to cause issues, whatever it may be. So I'm not doing this with an expectation that's going to change anything. I'm not doing this with the expectation that he's going to suddenly quit coaching or make his coaching better. I'm doing this just so that he is aware and that you are all fully aware of what type of person Joey actually is, and to understand this, that it's not going unchecked any longer. there's so many people who I know want to say something, but maybe they don't feel like they have the following to say it, or maybe they feel like they won't be heard. You're going to hear me though, period. What you do is unacceptable. The way you go about your coaching practices is unacceptable. Your lack of ethics and values is unacceptable. The way that you try to bully people and try to use your authority and your clout and your following and make it seem like, oh, I can offer things to people that that no one else can, as if though it makes you a god, as if though like it justifies the things that you do and the way that you act, it's unacceptable. And there are consequences to it. You can consider this that first consequence, because there's no longer be this thing where you're going to be able to sit here and talk about how righteous you are and how an amazing coach you are and how much you do for the community, because people are going to be able to look back at this and see, no, that's not the case. There's a lot more going on to it than that. It takes more than just having high-level lifters that do what it means to be a good coach. You have to care about people. Care enough to actually take the time to learn how to cue some technique. Care enough to actually take the time to communicate with your clients more than once every few weeks, even if they're not your strongest clients. Care enough to actually think about the impact you're having on the community as a whole when you do certain things, right? Stop being a hypocrite. You can't complain about certain bad behaviors that you yourself are constantly doing. Don't sit here and talk about how horrible poaching is, or try to accuse me or other coaches of poaching when your clients are being very clear with why they're leaving you and going somewhere else, when you're out poaching yourself, right? Don't do that. Don't sit here and try to say that, oh, we all need to be respectful of each other in this space, but then blatantly go after my lifter when he's down and allow your lifter and your girlfriend to do the same thing. That's unacceptable. And definitely don't sit here and try to act like it's this thing where, oh, it's not a big deal. You know, if a client wants to leave me because they want me to hold their hand, then I have no issue with that. When you're then going to be in my DMs for hours when a client's leaving you for pretty much that exact reason. Because what you call holding a client's hand is just doing your job. That's it. But yeah, I just needed to address all this because once again, it's ridiculous. The Russell stuff, I could let go if Petrie truly had said or done something that warranted it, that warranted this level of disrespect and type of retaliation, but he simply didn't. And for Joey and Tina to say anything about it is wild. And like I said, those of us in this space know what's going on with Flexx. We know what he does, and we know that the way that he influences people, man. That's just the truth of the matter. What you do with your clients is sick, man. Like, you take them on, you put all these thoughts in their head of what you can help them be and what you can make them be with your clout and your reach and stuff like that. And you do all this and give them the sense of entitlement, where if anyone speaks against them or criticizes you or anything about them, then they're the enemy, which is just beyond wild. Cult-like behavior, that's all it is. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore, because it's one of these things where I'm not about to make my channel about calling out. I'm not about to sit here and call out every single thing you do every single time you do it, but just know that it is very much known how you operate. People are aware of how you operate. And I might be the first person who's finally coming out and really addressing it, but I promise you I'm not going to be the last. So hopefully you do take something from this. Hopefully you do change for the better. Hopefully you do maybe think about how you're going to start moving going forward. Hopefully you do get out of the coaching space, because I really think the industry would be better if you did. And to people like, Jesus, Mikey, Keiko, and even Russ, people where I've never had any issues with you and I've been cool with you and stuff like that, if this suddenly makes you feel like you can't be cool with me or that you don't want to follow me or interact with me anymore, so be it. What does light have to do with darkness at the end of the day? And the way that Joey carries himself and the things he does is wrong. And I don't want any association with that anyway. So if you guys feel like it's better just to cut me off instead of really hearing what I'm saying, or at least or if nothing else, trying to have a conversation and maybe learn a little bit more about what's going on with your coach in the background, then so be it. But that's pretty much all I had to say about this. I wanted to address it. It's been addressed. I'm going to keep it moving. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing, which is trying to provide the highest level of service of coaching that I can, provide the highest level of content that I can to truly help people. And I'm going to continue to try to do it the right way. So that way, even if you do continue to do the things you do, Joey, if you continue to move the way that you do, it won't change the fact that people will see and know that there is an alternative, there is a better way of going about it, and that you can be successful in this industry the right way, without stepping on other people, without mistreating other people, without letting it be nothing but ego and arrogance. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen.